3 men, 1 throne, and only one of them will survive. China is bleeding. The Mongol Yuan Dynasty, once the mightiest empire on earth, is rotting from the inside. Floods, famines, corruption so deep it swallowed the court whole. And when empires rot, men with swords start asking questions. By the 1350s, the Red Turban Rebellion has cracked China open like an egg, but there's no single victor. No clear hero, just dozens of warlords carving up a dying empire, each one convinced that he is the man history has chosen. 3 names, though, rise above the rest. Chen Youliang, a fisherman's son who clawed his way up through blood and betrayal, and now commands the largest fleet on the Yangtze River. His ships aren't just warships. They're floating fortresses, towers of wood and iron that block out the sun. Zhang Shicheng, a salt smuggler turned lord, now sitting on the wealthiest cities in China, patient and calculating, letting his rivals bleed each other dry. And then there's the third man, Zhu Yuanzhang, former beggar, former monk, the man who, not long ago, was eating bark to survive. Now he controls Nanjing, one of the most strategic cities in China, and he is done surviving. He is hunting. Here's what separates Zhu from every other warlord in China. He thinks. While others are busy winning battles, Zhu Yuanzhang is building something that outlasts battles. A system. Taxes organized. Soldiers trained on rotation, not just conscripted and thrown at a wall. Supply chains secured. Laws enforced. He surrounds himself with the sharpest minds he can find, men like Liu Bowen, a strategist so brilliant that later generations would call him a prophet. Liu Bowen doesn't just plan battles, he plans the consequences of battles. Other warlords have armies. Zhu Yuanzhang is building a state, and that difference is going to matter very, very soon. But you can't build an empire while someone else is trying to burn it down. Chen Youliang has been watching Nanjing grow, and he doesn't like what he sees. Because the math is simple. The longer Zhu is left alone, the stronger he gets. And a strong Zhu Yuanzhang is a problem. So Chen moves first. His fleet surges up the Yangtze like a storm front. Hundreds of ships, thousands of soldiers. The message isn't subtle. Submit or drown. Zhu has no real choice here. He can't retreat. There's nowhere to go. He can't wait. Chen will just keep coming. And he can't match Chen ship for ship, so he does what he always does when the odds are against him. He changes the rules. The year is 1363. The place is Lake Poyang, one of the largest freshwater lakes in China, stretching hundreds of kilometers across the landscape, wide and flat and exposed. It is, in other words, the perfect killing ground for a massive fleet, which is exactly why Chen Youliang chose it. On Chen's side, a fleet of towering warships, some 3 stories tall, chained together for stability, packed with soldiers and cannons. It is, by any measure, the most formidable naval force in China. On Zhu's side, smaller boats. Faster, lighter. And a commander who knows he cannot fight this battle straight. The opening exchange is brutal. Arrows blacken the sky. Cannons tear through wooden hulls. Ships splinter and sink. Zhu's forces take hit after hit, and more than once his flagship is nearly surrounded. At one desperate moment, Zhu Yuanzhang, the man who wants to be emperor, nearly dies on that lake, on a burning ship, with nowhere to run. He survives. Barely. But survival isn't enough. He needs to win. And that's when Liu Bowen puts the plan on the table. Chen's ships are terrifying, but they're also enormous, heavy, slow. When chained together, they can't scatter. They can't maneuver. What looks like strength is actually a trap waiting to be sprung. That night, under darkness, Zhu sends fire ships drifting silently across the lake toward Chen's fleet. Small boats, packed with straw, oil, and flame. For a moment, nothing. Then, the first ship catches. Then the next. The fire doesn't just burn, it spreads, ship to ship, chain to chain, because the very thing that made Chen's fleet powerful, those chains holding everything together, now makes escape impossible. Soldiers jump into the lake. Towers of burning wood collapse into the water. The entire surface of Lake Poyang becomes a battlefield of fire and smoke and screaming. Zhu's lighter ships tear through the chaos, striking fast where Chen's forces can't react. The battle lasts for days, and then, in the middle of it all, one arrow flies. It finds Chen Youliang through the eye. The most powerful warlord in China dies on his own burning lake, on a ship he could not escape, in a battle he thought he had already won. The fighting stops, not with cheering, not with triumph, just quiet. Smoke drifting across the water. Blackened hulls half submerged, bodies floating in the shallows. Zhu Yuanzhang stands on his ship and surveys what's left. The Battle of Lake Poyang is over. And with it, his greatest rival is gone. The power balance of China just shifted completely. One rival remains, Zhang Xicheng. Where Chen Youliang came at you like a flood, Zhang Xicheng fights like a fortress. Defensive, patient, entrenched behind wealthy, well-supplied cities in the east. He doesn't charge, he waits. So Zhu doesn't charge either. He surrounds, supply routes, cut, trade, strangled. Food, gone. What Zhang Xicheng built his power on, wealth, stability, abundance, Zhu methodically dismantles, one road at a time. Months pass, then a year, then more. Inside the cities, morale doesn't just fall, it collapses. Soldiers stop believing, commanders start calculating what surrender is worth, and when Zhu finally strikes, the walls that seemed so strong barely hold. Zhang Xicheng is captured, defeated not in a single brilliant battle, but by patience, by time, by a man who understood that sometimes the most devastating weapon isn't fire, it's waiting. Now China holds its breath. The Yuan Dynasty in the north is a ghost of what it was. The court at Dadu, modern Beijing, is paralyzed by corruption and infighting. The Mongol rulers know what's coming. They've seen it in every city that has fallen, every army that hasn't come home. In 1368, Zhu Yuanzhang's armies march north, and the Yuan Dynasty does not fight. It flees. Not a dramatic last stand, not a heroic defense. The rulers of the most powerful empire in the world simply pack what they can carry and ride back to the steppe. For the first time in nearly 100 years, China belongs to the Chinese again. Let's take a breath here and think about what just happened. Zhu Yuanzhang was born into nothing. He watched his family starve. He begged, he shaved his head and became a monk not out of devotion but because it was that or die. He fought his way into a rebellion that could have gotten him killed 100 times over. And now? He controls China, not by luck, not by birthright, by will, by strategy, by an absolute refusal to stop when any reasonable person would have. From beggar to emperor, the impossible made real. But here's the thing about men who claw their way to power through blood and hunger and loss. They don't always rule the way you'd hope, because Zhu Yuanzhang has spent his entire life fighting enemies, surviving betrayal, trusting no one. And now he sits on the dragon throne, surrounded by people. Who does he see when he looks at them? Allies or threats? Next, Part 4. The Emperor's Dark Side. The man who saved China from the Mongols will spend the rest of his life saving it from something else entirely, his own paranoia.